so linked to how educated you are, but how understanding you can be, how open you can be. I think as people, we forget that we can just be. I think there's a lot of ideas of you're only authentic if you come out. I don't think it works like that because
If I have a girlfriend और वो अगर किसी और के साथ बैठ के कॉफी पी रही है, I'll be very jealous.
you know, if you have feelings for someone, you have feelings. We're humans. We can have feelings for how many ever people. No, that's not true. That's what I mean. That's why I struggle with the label sometimes. Is it's confusing because that doubt comes like.
Is virginity even a thing in queer space?
I think these labels take over and we forget that they're only part of a person and that there is actually a whole person. But I think the biggest thing about the community is to self-identify and see how you view yourself. So I think the label would come from there.
Do you have to dress in a certain way to look yourself as queer? Am I a bad ally if I don't post about it online? तो दिन रात आप आपके लव कोच राहुल माकिन के साथ जब लव की बात आती है, लव इज ऑलवेज इंक्लूसिव. तो ये कभी कोई कम्युनिटी नहीं देखता है, मोहब्बत कभी कोई जेंडर नहीं देखती है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई हम बहुत प्राइड के साथ प्राइड मंथ भी सेलिब्रेट करते हैं. आज मेरे साथ है अंकिता, who is a counseling psychologist and project manager, Karma Care. Hi Ankita, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you?
Superb. So, fear की जहाँ आपने बात की, coming out on social media is now looks very cool. और ये बहुत सेलिब्रेट भी किया जाता है. But इंडिया में still in tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's very difficult. I mean, almost impossible. In metros, ये अभी बहुत आम हो गया है और it's good कि ये आम हो गया है. It's normal.
Yeah.
But tier 2, tier 3 cities में ये बहुत मुश्किल है. Like society is very conventional. How do you help your clients if they belong to such cities to come out of that fear?
Right. I mean, honestly, I would first understand where the fear is coming from. That same thing that I said earlier of establishing what kind of risks are there, you know. And then after that idea of risk, what can protect them? You know, what can keep them safe? Because something that I appreciate about a culture like ours is that support is available of different kinds. So to identify where that support comes from. कभी-कभी हमें ये idea होता है कि अगर someone is from a metropolitan city and an urban area कि they're educated तो उन्हें ज़्यादा पता होगा. But I have had clients from all over and it's such a mixed bag because sometimes parents from tier 1, tier 2 cities, as you said, can be so much more understanding than parents from, let's say, Delhi or Bombay or something like that. And to sort of understand that idea that it's not so linked to how educated you are, but how understanding you can be, how open you can be. Further, what I would do is try to connect the individual. Something that's great now is that each of these tiny cities has a queer collective. Like I myself come from Dehradun. We've had a queer collective there for years.
Oh, wow.
You know, and a lot of these cities have that. So my first step is to identify that, try and connect them to it, get them online support, even of any kind. I know that being online presences and all have their downsides, but for queer individuals and trans individuals and the community in general, I think it has created a lot of support systems also that can exist.
Online validation की बात करते हैं. Is it helping the queer community now or इसका भी कुछ ऐसा downside है?
I think with social media and online validation, you know, it's such a two-sided coin sometimes. It can go either way. So in a lot of ways, I see that it helps people because it helps them feel seen. It helps them see others who fight for them, who will argue. Let's say even in the comments, something small like that can change how a person feels to see one person support them. Right. But yeah, it does definitely have its downsides. I think in India only so many recently cases have happened of cyberbullying, then leading to, you know, people dying by suicide, like queer and trans individuals dying by suicide. So it's a very difficult space. I think some of these things can be sorted if the, you know, platforms can have policies to identify bullying, not just in English, but in other languages.
Coming out, ये एक ऐसा phrase है अभी, which is often linked to being, you know, brave. कि हिम्मत है तो, you know, अब बाहर आके जाओ, come out and identify yourself. But again, it's your choice. It's okay if you don't want to come out, and it's okay if you just want to stay where you are and just be.
Yeah.
So, what do you think out of two things is, like, you know, where would you go?
Right. I think I really liked how you said just be. I think as people, we forget that we can just be. I think there's a lot of ideas of you're only authentic if you come out. I don't think it works like that because हर एक इंडिविजुअल को अपने लाइफ के बारे में सबसे ज़्यादा पता होता है, राइट? दे नो हाउ देयर एनवायरनमेंट इज, दे नो व्हाट देयर इकोसिस्टम इज लाइक, they will be able to gauge safety. Even as a practitioner, my biggest role is to help them understand what that safety is, what they have. And so I don't think we can say only if you come out are you brave. You also have to have the kind of support to be brave, right? Like, I was only able to come out because I knew what my family would be like, how they would react. I knew what my social circle was like. I don't know if everyone has that. So I don't think it's necessary that coming out is the bravest thing to do. It's a very difficult, very courageous thing to do, but also to exist as a queer or trans individual is very brave in itself.
Again, it's not very personal, but I would want to hear it from you. You belong to this community, queer community. When somebody has to address you, should they be calling you as lesbians or probably some other word which you find yourself comfortable with?
I mean, my first question would be like, what made them talk about that? If they want to address me, like, I'm not too caught up on the words. If they want to address me as lesbian, they can. If they don't, that's also okay. I think they could just ask, I guess. I like the word queer also. I feel like it's
Queer.
very inclusive. So I prefer if people just call me queer. But lesbian is also okay. It's not a, yeah.
Okay. Thinking about, it so many times, it's not only about, it comes during this Pride Month only.
Yeah.
A lot of time I think about this, we all are humans.
Yeah.
And that's why we call love is inclusive. Does this happen? Because, right now I'm talking to someone who is, going through this phase, who is, a lesbian. So feelings of jealousy, feelings of insecurity, क्या वो भी वैसी ही उसी फ्रीक्वेंसी में आती हैं, उतनी ही ज़्यादा या कम होती हैं जैसे if it is for someone belonging to the opposite gender?
So I'm not sure I fully understood your question.
जैसे
but
आप
yeah.
if you have a girlfriend,
Yeah.
or if she goes out with some other girl, so
Yeah.
would you be jealous? Would you be like insecure? जैसे हम
Okay,
हम तो
like that.
if I have a girlfriend और वो अगर किसी और के साथ बैठ के कॉफी पी रही होगी, I'll be very jealous. So
No, fair. I think again it's very individualistic. For me, perhaps a thought will come. Like there will be a thought, but I think like I have just worked on this idea of jealousy and insecurity to see it as like the dynamic I would have also would be that if you have feelings for someone, you have feelings. We're humans. We can have feelings for how many ever people. I guess like if I feel comfortable and secure in my relationship and that we will talk about it, that feels okay. But yeah, in general, of course, there are like individuals do experience jealousy and insecurities in the same ways. And it's very individualistic, like it may differ from person to person.
one more feeling, जैसे कहते हैं कि प्यार इंसान को कभी एक बार नहीं होता है, बहुत बार हो सकता है. You are in love with a woman. Has it ever happened to you that you fell or you just had a crush or probably a very small crush on a man?
Yeah, I mean, we're socialized, no? It's conditioned into us. So obviously for the first 16, 17 years, I thought that's what is going to happen. So I had a lot of crushes, not just one. I've also dated, cisgendered men in the past. And that's what I mean. It was a journey to sort of understand that is conditioned. That's not my identity as I see it right now. And so it took a while to do that and understand that, okay, this is not for me. This is not something I enjoy in the same way or like.
But after you identified yourself as lesbian, उसके बाद नहीं हुआ?
No, that's not true. That's what I mean. That's why I struggle with the label sometimes. Is it's confusing because that doubt comes like, oh, am I really? What does this mean?
Let's talk about sex and intimacy. What are some, there are a lot of myths around queer sex that, even educated people do believe about.
Right.
So, are there some myths you would want to burst here?
I think definitely the ideas of like firstly what we refer to as sex. I think queer sex is so inclusive, like when it comes to cisgender, heterosexual sex, I think there is one idea of what sex looks like. There's one picture that comes to people's mind when they think of it. But queer sex can take on a lot of different forms. Another thing I would say is that a lot of people think it's just about sex, it's just about physical intimacy, but it's not. I think the emotional structures and mental structures of people, depending on their gender, is also very different. So it's about a lot of different things. It's not about just a body. You know, sometimes we reduce it to that, a physical body, but it's beyond that. I think also the idea that queer or trans individuals have a lot of sex, I don't think that's true. I think it's like everyone experiences sex and the frequency that they'd like to have physical intimacy in lots of different ways, and that stands true for the community as well. And I think one of the biggest myths is the myths around HIV, that, the community is more likely or more prone to having, getting HIV or susceptible to HIV, which is again not true. We've come a far way of understanding. I won't go into that because it's a whole topic, but that's definitely a myth.
Yeah, one definitely out of all those points that you covered, one which I would love to, have your views separately about is that queer love is hypersexual.
Yeah.
How much is it true, or is it like truly baseless?
I do think it's truly baseless. Again, it comes from this idea of, where it started. And it started in a lot of our sort of diagnostic manuals. And sometimes even religious texts, where it was said, especially when it came to the gay community and men sleeping with men, those terms even, that's where they were defined. And I think because of that idea that it's only about sex or physical intimacy and only that is not okay, only that is deviant or wrong, was where these ideas came from, right? And I think so that while we have moved past the idea that, okay, this is wrong or there's something unnatural about it, I think we still look at it from the frame of sex, and we make relationships in general a lot about how good the sex is or how much sex you're having. And I just think there's so much more to love, right? And there's so much more going on. So I think in general, that idea that people only do this because they want to have sex with the same gender or a different gender, that idea needs to be sort of fixed a little bit, because that's not how it is.
Another myth I would want you to talk about is virginity. Is virginity even a thing in queer space?
I mean, again, virginity as a concept, if we look back at it, it is a very, I think, a patriarchal concept that has come from this idea of purity and innocence and so on. When we talk about the community, I think sometimes the community and the physical intimacy within that takes place between individuals in the community has been erased for very long. So in that sense, virginity, yes, can be a concept and should be a concept if it is like a concept for heterosexual couples or partners. But outside of that, I would say virginity in itself, maybe we as a society should relook at it as a concept.
Of course. Can someone still be queer and at the same time be toxic as a partner?
100%. I mean, we're all individuals at the end of the day. Sometimes I think these labels take over and we forget that they're only part of a person and that there is actually a whole person with different parts that are playing together. So 100% a person who's queer can be a toxic partner, can be a toxic person.
There's some of the questions, some of the myths that I would want you to bust. One is liking the same gender, if you do it, you would fall into that category of queer?
I mean, yeah, I guess as an umbrella term, it is sort of to make space for individuals that may experience feelings for the same gender, and that it's outside the accepted norm, right? Which is that you should have only feelings for the other gender. But again, feelings here depends on so much. Like it could be romantic feelings, platonic feelings, it could be anything. But I think the biggest thing about the community is to self-identify and see how you view yourself. So I think the label would come from there. But essentially, if you're like definition-wise, yeah.
Do you have to dress in a certain way to look yourself as queer?
I mean, I think what has happened is over time, because of pop culture and things, there's a very clear aesthetic of what a queer person looks like. But no, I don't think anyone has to dress.
But we also see in all those parades, there's a certain kind of aesthetic that everybody follows.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the idea is that pride is loud, pride is colorful, and so on. But I think sometimes what happens is in all of that, we forget that like we're also just people and everyone has different aesthetic senses, aesthetic styles, and also are just various ages, right? There's so many age groups. So I don't think there's a possibility for a queer person to look a certain way, but there's definitely an image of what a queer person looks like. I would say that in pop culture there is an image.
Is it okay if I ask someone what is your pronoun, or is it too much?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's too much. I would just say that when you do ask someone their pronouns, in a way you are asking them to come out to you. So then you leave them with two options. Either they take that trust in you, they have that trust in you and they do tell you, or they lie to you. So you're basically putting them in a difficult position. So let's say if someone was supposed to ask me my pronouns, and my pronouns are they and she. So I don't necessarily identify entirely as a cis woman, right? And so I'm quite okay with it. Anybody can ask me, I'm all right with that. But let's say I was if I wasn't, then I would be placed in a position where either I lie, or I give you one of my pronouns, or I trust you to be able to accept that I use both pronouns and what that might mean about my gender.
I have never kissed someone before. I have never been this intimate with someone before. How do I know what I am?
I mean, I think that a lot of the times, even in the stories that you will hear, even the stories I've heard in therapy and read about, lived experiences, sometimes there's just a way of knowing. There's like, yes, a lot of people get to know through their experiences and realize that's like, for instance, what happened with me is that through my experiences, I realized how I feel about other people. But for a lot of people, there is just a knowing, you know, so it doesn't have to be that you need to do something to know how you are and how you experience the world.
Absolutely. How do I support the queer community without being called as a fake or a cringe?
I think to understand better what support might look like, what community members, both as a group or as an individual, might need. I think there are lots of shades to being an ally as well, and I think you can see where you fit in. I think the general you, not you. But I think it can look like anything. It can look like loud advocacy. It can look like posting about it online. It can look like supporting a friend in whatever ways they need. So I think to decide what you are able to do.
Am I a bad ally if I don't post about it online?
Are you a bad ally? No, I think it depends on what that means for you also. Like for a lot of people, even their families or their friends or their workplaces may not even be comfortable with them being associated with the community.
True.
So while again you can fight that fight, it really depends on like how you want to do it, how you keep yourself safe as well. Because unfortunately we live in turbulent times, so it has a lot of layers to it.
True. Can I attend a Pride event or maybe multiple events if I don't know much about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Sorry, no, I think definitely it depends. I mean, if you mean like as a cisgendered straight person, if you can attend Pride events, you'd have to sort of see if that space is open just to queer and trans people or not. But otherwise, you can attend how many ever, as long as it's open to you and it, like, you know, because some spaces are just for the community to keep them safe in a certain way, but some spaces are open to everybody.
All right. Finally, the term LGBTQIA+, if you have to break down the term, how does it go like?
So L, as we discussed, stands for lesbian, G stands for gay, B is bisexual, T stands for trans, I is intersex, A is asexual, and Q is queer. And the plus is because there's so many ways to identify ourselves, see ourselves, and interact with the world and experience other people. So it's for all the other very many identities that might exist.
Superb. Thank you very
Not
much.
at
It
all.
was lovely having you here today.
It was
Ankita,
lovely
and
talking to you.
A lot of myths which I was not sure about got busted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love एक धोखा क्यों तूने इतना को रोका Love एक धोखा मिलता नहीं अब कोई मौका